All right, folks, in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Ron Roberts, Jr., and I want to welcome you to the Sports Industry Showcase. And very, very excited to be here today. I've put a lot of time and thought into this, along with my co-host, Jeff Fellenzer, many months. And as a matter of fact, this has actually been years in the making. I did this event for the first time. I was working at the University of Southern California, did it for a couple of years, and moved from University of Southern California to do some other things. And so last summer, interesting enough, during the course of a pandemic, this idea came to my mind. And my great friend, Jeff Fellenzer, and I had a chance to chat, and we started to talk about doing some events and activities just to continue to encourage students as they moved along their sports career journey. And then this conference idea came to mind too. So years in the making, and certainly the last few months have been completely focused on this. So we're definitely looking forward to having an amazing experience. We have some awesome speakers. I can't say enough about them. And so Jeff and I will do our part to manage and to move us through, but the speakers will be, they're the heart of it, and they're the feature attraction. And so, so we'll talk more about that. So let's go ahead and move into the slides here. All right, so officially, I want to welcome you to the Sports Industry Day one of the Sports Industry Showcase. As I mentioned, we put a lot of work into crafting the agenda and assembling a fantastic line of industry speakers to provide tremendous value to you as you move along your sports career journey. We hope that our event will be a highly informative, engaging, and inspiring experience for you. So we definitely believe you're going to get tons of information from the speakers. That's a given. But we also want to, in the process, keep you engaged, and we want this to be an interactive process. So there will be opportunities throughout today and tomorrow to engage with the speakers. But as importantly, we want this to be inspiring to you. And we want you to feel a little bit more hope about your sports career journey, especially in light of this global pandemic and all the other craziness that's been happening over the last year or so. And so we need hope, we need inspiration. And so this conference will hopefully provide a little bit of that. And so Jeff, did you want to chime in and say a couple of things?
Absolutely, Ron. Thank you very much, Ron, for your great work and vision to make this event a reality. It's great to see so many familiar faces, some of my students. I'm thrilled about it. You've been a joy to work with, as always. I'm honored to be part of the team. Our great student ambassadors and student influencers who've helped create awareness and generate the energy, enthusiasm, and buzz that really lifts all of us and gets us primed and ready to rock. And that's how I feel. So I'm thrilled we can make this two-day event free for all of our students and anyone else attending. It's been a challenging year for all of us, which is why it's, in my mind, it's especially important to offer events like this now. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I think when potential future employers ask you what you did to stay productive during COVID, you'll have some things to tell them about, including an event like this. It's going to be part of your story. You're going to tell your story of what you were doing during this year. I've been telling my friends and students that I'm looking at this as a red shirt year, to use sports speak. Hopefully we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and it'll end up being a year out of our lives, not 5 years or 10 years. So it's important to keep that in perspective too. As long as a year as it seemed, if it ends up being a year, we'll call it a red shirt year. I was reflecting about myself growing up in Long Beach, California, knowing I wanted, needed, had to work in sports somewhere. But I did it without events like this to sort of help guide me and help clarify things. So I started to build a network through my classes at USC, through an internship with the Dodgers. You can't tell that I like the Dodgers, I know. Operating the old message board at Dodger Stadium, pre-Diamond Vision. Meeting people and just I was the guy that would follow up, and I'd call someone. It was a little, you had fewer options of ways to connect we do today. So when I got a card, I would be the one that would call. I had somebody tell me once, a very influential sportscaster in my life, I gave my card to a lot of college students over the years, and you were one of two people that had actually ended up calling and following up. And this person became a great influence on me. And the other person became a CNN anchor. So be that person that follows up, that uses the social platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter, or any of the digital sites that we'll discuss the next couple of days. But most important, we want you to connect with accomplished folks in the sports business and sports media industries who are here, one, because of their expertise, but two, and most important, because they want to help you. What I've found over the years, and I think it's been unanimous in talking to people in sports, is that anyone who's working in some aspect of sports had help along the way. It's not a linear field of entry, and people don't forget that. You put good karma into the world, and it comes back to you. And you guys will do the same thing when you're in a position to help others someday. As John Wooden, the late great UCLA coach and great friend and mentor of mine, says about the greatest gift in life, doing something for someone else without any thought of getting something in return. So Ron, let's get after it.
Okay, terrific. All right, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. Let's move on. All right, so I wanted to give one of our student ambassadors, Garrett Seville, an opportunity to give a quick welcome. So Garrett, are you there by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, great, Garrett. The floor is yours.
All righty, perfect. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Garrett Seville, and I wanted to welcome you all on behalf of the student ambassadors. We'd like to thank you for all taking the time out of your Friday to attend this conference. This is the first step into making your dream a reality, and I'm really excited to see what everyone gets out of this conference and how they'll use it. The guests we have are the best of the best, and this should be a really fun and informative event for all. Welcome.
Terrific, Garrett. Great job. Thank you for that. All right, so conference goals, we have three. So number one, introduce college students to the wide world of sports career options. And so that's one of the, objectives. There are so many sports career options out there. And unfortunately, sometimes people tend to focus just on a few. And so there are many, so we want to make sure you're introduced to those options through the context of the conference. Secondly, we want to influence student career potential and character. And so we want to be able to help with your career development, whether it's your skills development or just really developing character qualities that are going to be a benefit and also an appeal to potential employers. And then finally, as I mentioned before, we want to inspire students for their own sports career journey. So those are our three objectives. All right, so just real quick, just a little background on being one of your co-hosts. So I'm a former college career advisor. I spent a number of years working at the University of Southern California, and that's sort of how I got my career counseling chops. I eventually phased into corporate recruiting, which I'm doing today. And outside of my day-to-day job, I am a career and college planning partner. And it's a calling for me. It's a passion for me. And so I have my day job, but this is the one thing that really drives me and keeps me going. Also, I'm a sports career event organizer and moderator. So at USC, I spent a lot of time putting together events like this, and it's great to be able to revisit that. And finally, I'm the creator of the Sports Industry Showcase. And so as I mentioned before, we hosted for the first time a few years ago, back in 2006, and then again in 2007. And so happy to be able to do it again. All right, and then Jeff, who's also your co-host. Jeff Fellinger has more than 3 decades of experience in sports media, sports management, higher education, and also as an entrepreneur. He's an associate professor of professional practice at the University of Southern California's Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism. But as you can see on the screen, that's not all that Jeff does. That's not all that Jeff's about. He's much more, and so he's currently the host of the Front Row podcast, and so definitely encourage you to look that up and check it out. Also, really cool, he's a Heisman Trophy voter. He's been that since 2007. He's also been a featured speaker for the Sports Business Classroom in Las Vegas, NBA Summer League. Also has been a guest speaker and moderator for a number of events at various campuses, college campuses. He's an entrepreneur, as I mentioned, so he's the founder of the Pete Newell Challenge, which is a college basketball doubleheader, and I believe it was based out of the Bay Area. And then also Jeff's a faculty advisor for the USC Sports Business Association and a communications consultant for USCF Athletics. And so to me, as important as all those things are, I think equally as important is Jeff is just a great guy. He's been a wonderful partner. If you talk to any of his students, they will just glow and just talk about just how amazing he is, and just also folks in the industry. So he is truly a wonderful person to know. And so if you aren't connected with him, hopefully you will consider that. All right, so just going to wrap up some quick thank yous. So our industry partnership team, and so we had 16 wonderful individuals from the industry who committed to this conference, and they pledged that they would advocate for this conference. And so, in addition to advocating for it, they were useful and in terms of helping me to get some of the speakers we have today. They also contributed in-kind donations, and also just share some ideas just to really help us to make this conference truly a success. And so I'm going to thank them for their contributions. And you can see just a list of who they are and just who they're connected to. All right, next I want to give a thank you to our student ambassadors, and we had several here from different campuses who helped out in a lot of different ways. And so whether it was just simply promoting the conference on their respective campuses or across their social channels, to doing interviews of industry professionals that we'll upload to an online portal I'll tell you about, or just contributing, on the day of the conference. And so Garrett shared a welcome, but you'll hear from more of our student ambassadors over the next couple of days. So thank you, student ambassadors. All right, and thank you to our in-kind donors. And so we have some pretty cool raffle prizes, and you'll learn about some of those raffle prizes at the end of the day. And certainly, hopefully you'll be back tomorrow, and there'll be some more too. But I want to thank Adidas, EA, Fox Sports, the Los Angeles Angels, Los Angeles Kings, Major League Baseball, the Sports Business Journal, Sports Illustrated for their in-kind donations. All right, so just real quick, just going to quickly go over the conference agenda. I'm not going to get too detailed in it, and I'm actually going to put a link into the agenda so you can actually view it at your own leisure. And so we're going to start off in the panel in just a moment, all access to an arena of sports career opportunities. And that's really a great way to kick off the conference. And we're going to have some panelists who are going to really just help you to understand the world of sports career options that are out there. And then, we'll do a career pep talk, and there'll be more of these, just some quick motivational talks to help you with your career. We have a sports marketing partnerships panel coming up. We'll have some breakout sessions, and that's going to be really cool. It's going to allow you to be able to connect with industry professionals in a little bit more of an intimate setting. And then we'll have a morning wrap up. And then after that, we'll take an hour-long break, and then we'll come back with a sports media and communication panel, more pep talks, sports technology, sports law and athlete management. And then we're going to end the day with a career Q&A, and where we're going to have one or two industry professionals, but also some college career counselors, along with Jeff and I, who are going to share some tried and true advice about resumes, interviewing, networking, anything that you feel that you need to know to be successful in the career journey. And then we will wrap up with a raffle and some closing remarks. All right, so day two, I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but we're going to also have some more panels, action Olympic sports, finding your niche in sports, position yourself for a winning career. So I'm definitely encourage you to come back for those, because we're going to really bring some folks in who are going to give you some of the nuts and bolts about being very successful along the sports career journey. But probably the highlight of tomorrow is we're going to have a conversation with Dan Evans, and Dan Evans is a former general manager for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He currently has his own baseball consultancy, but in the former life, he was a former GM for the Dodgers, and he also hired Kim Ng, I believe, on a couple of occasions. And as many of you probably know, she's the first female general manager for Major League Baseball. I believe she's currently with the Mariners. All right, so that's a preview of day two. All right, so just real quick, few housekeeping notes. So we're going to ask you, if you don't have your microphones muted, please go ahead and do that. We're going to also ask you to turn off your video option. So we only want the panelists to have their videos on so that they're showcased properly. So if you are not on the panel, I'm going to ask you to turn off your video option. Please use the chat function for questions or comments. We want the chat to be very active, and so put questions in, and we'll look for it, and we'll bring that to the attention of the panelists and the moderator, and just any comments you have. And then finally, we're going to encourage you to share your experience with the Sports Industry Showcase across your social media channels. And so we have a hashtag Sports Industry Showcase, and I'll put that in the chat, but hashtag Sports Industry Showcase. So yeah, across your Twitter, across your Instagram or whatever other social channels that you use. Let folks know what you're learning from this conference and what you're getting out of it and just how you feel about it. All right, without further ado, let's get into our first panel, All Access to an Arena of Sports Career Opportunities. And so Jeff Fellinger is going to moderate this. And so Jeff, take it away.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, Ron. Let's get after it. What I would encourage everybody listening in to do is just, take notes, jot some stuff down that you hear from the panelists. It may not be every single person on every single panel hits on something that really resonates with you, but take notes of things that do, because these are things you can draw from for forever. You can reflect on things that you've learned at events like this, and just nuggets here and there that can hopefully help boost your career and your chance to break into sports. So we thought this would be a great way to get started, where we kind of do a bit of an overview of career opportunities with some absolutely terrific people, 3 really, really sensational guests that have done so much themselves in their careers and are so willing to help. And I'm consider them friends, and I'm thrilled that they're part of this. So let me introduce, I'll introduce each one. We'll kind of just go briefly through, sort of the career path, and then we'll start talking about career opportunities. So Brian Clapp is the VP of Content and Engaged Learning at a great site, workinsports.com. It's a comprehensive database of sports jobs, sports internships, just job alerts. Brian works out of Philadelphia. Just great information out there on how to help prepare yourself for opportunities in the field, which he also does through a terrific podcast. He is the host, writer, producer, everything of the Work in Sports podcast. It offers insights from guests on representing all aspects of sports industry, and plus his own career advice, which is curated from his 25 plus years in the sports industry.
Thanks, Jeff.
You bet. Yeah, welcome, Brian. Great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Celeste. Celeste and I used to work together. I didn't know until this morning Celeste was going to be on this. Celeste and I worked together for a long time.
Again, we're reminded what a small world sports is.
Uh-huh.
Love that. So my good friend Celeste Gehring has her own production company. She's just a superstar in the area of sports broadcast productions, worked for years as VP of operations and production at Fox Sports. After her basketball playing career ended at LSU, she helped coordinate startups at for the Fox Sports regional news networks, websites, also FS1. She's helped coordinate large-scale events like the Super Bowl, World Series, Olympic Games. She's working at the New England Sports Network right now, coordinating coverage for them back there, one of the powerhouse regional sports networks in the country. And she's the author of BU on Video, which helps aspiring sports broadcasters learn the best way to present themselves on the air. She does lots of seminars. She works with young broadcasters. She's been a guest in my class, and I'm telling you, my students can't get enough of Celeste. So Celeste, so glad you could join us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Those of you that know Jeff, he's one of the most positive people on the planet. So anytime I'm around him, it's contagious, and I get super geeked out and super excited. And thank you so much for, Ron, I don't know as well, and I'm getting to know him. So thanks, Ron and Jeff, for having me here today.
Absolutely. Thank you. And James Collins, who's the Senior Director of Ticket Sales and Staff Development for the Los Angeles Kings, the NHL, and also for AEG Sports, one of the real powerhouse sports agencies based in LA. He's worked extensively in the area of ticket sales and service. I think you'll talk to anybody in sports that will tell you, if you have experience selling in sales, that it will serve you for a lifetime and really help to build your foundation in sports, the ability to sell things. Whenever Casey Wasserman's in my class, which was just a couple of weeks ago, he always makes that point, is we're selling. Everything we do in sports is about sales. So when you have practical experience doing it, it really, really adds to your profile. So that's the area that James is specialized in. He was the director of premium seating for AEG in LA, and then also was the director of ticket sales and service for the New Jersey Devils. He went to New Jersey right after the Kings beat the Devils for the Stanley Cup, so they clearly needed to tap into the Kings' expertise. So James, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. It's great to be here, and I'll echo everything that Brian and Celeste said. Jeff and Ron, you guys are doing great things, so I am honored.
Appreciate you. Brian, why don't we start with you? Just if there's anything you want to share with the students, just sort of a snapshot of your world and leading work in sports, and just if you have a feel for right now, just the industry, and if there are trends or areas that you think that they might want to be thinking about, even through COVID, and if that light at the end of the tunnel is there, as I think it is, that they should be, how they should be preparing, and if there's areas that particularly will have a needs to be filled going forward.
For sure. And thanks again. I will just jump into this and say a couple overarching principles. Like I started, as Celeste knows, I started in the broadcast media, right? So I started out at CNN Sports Illustrated. I jumped to being the news director at Fox Sports Northwest. And for the last 10 years, I've been doing something completely different on the digital side and doing career advice and helping people get started in their sports industry. So one of the things to keep in mind through all of this process is that your career probably won't be a straight line, right? You're going to jump from side to side. You're going to have some moves that take you really far ahead, and then you might shift, you might change, you might have different desires. And what I would say too, in kind of a broad thought process of what's happening in the sports industry right now, this is the kind of question we've all been wrangling with for the first year. And I think for the last year, and I think what we've seen is, the first couple of months, a lot of us speculated. We're like, listen, we don't know how long this is going to last. So there's going to be a boost to sales jobs in the next 3 to 4 months because everybody's going to be trying to make it up revenue. And then it was 3 or 4 months later and we're all like, okay, there's still nothing to sell, right? So we saw on our jobs board that generally speaking, about 50% of the jobs, and Jeff is spot on, right? About 50% of the jobs in the sports industry are connected to sales in some way, shape, or form. And sales, it pervades the entire industry. But with a less sponsorship activation and less in-stadium, deals and less suites and less tickets, we went from 12,500 active jobs related to sales to about 600. And it sat there for about 6 to 8 months. Now, the sports industry tends to over-index in sales jobs. And then as that came down, other things went up. And I think that's how you have to look at the marketplace right now. Sales jobs are coming back. We're seeing that trend. The trend line is looking positive, and I guarantee you, James will talk more about that. But what I will tell you is that there's other areas that have picked up as well. And one of the biggest ones is business analysts, okay? So revenue optimization, there's three forms really. Tech data, which I'm going to get into as far as the revenue generation stuff too as well, revenue optimization. There's creative stuff, all the different creative avenues out there, because there's a dearth of content out there and people want more, right? And Celeste, I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot. And then there's also a lifestyle retail side, right? Not just retail. I'm not saying like working at Foot Locker. I'm saying lifestyle brands, Adidas, Puma, Under Armour. There was still this need for e-commerce sales. And those are all a lot of business roles, but also a lot of creative roles. And so what we see is some areas go down, other areas go up, and it's a time for people to be creative and say, what sounds interesting to me in there? And I'll get into some strategies around that later. I don't want to hog too much time now, but what you'll see is there's a great need right now for people that understand the business of sports and can help you analyze the data behind, we lost revenue, so how can we make it up? Where can we make it up? How can we run more efficiently? So it's not just the process of bringing in more money, it's also how do we spend? How do we execute on our business plans? How do we set up strategies for the future? So I was talking to Maylin Vu with the Cleveland Indians 2 years ago, before coronavirus, and she was saying the largest trend that we have in hiring is in business analysts, right? We need people that can really get into the data behind our business and understand where there's opportunities to make more or to spend less. And that was before coronavirus, and that need is only increased. So that combination of creative and data really do start to overlap in some real positive growth areas.
Yeah, that's some really great advice and thoughts, Brian. Really good. James, do you want to pick up on that? As we've talked about sales here to start with.
Yeah, I mean, Brian hit the nail on the head. It's been brutal. I mean, it's been a tough 12-month stretch. We all kind of speculated when we'd start staffing up because so many teams have lost staff, but it is slowly coming back. The word that Brian used that I think applies to sales in sports too is technology. Like we're automating the sales process quite a bit. I mean, a lot of these teams, their staffs were huge in sales and service professionals, and they dropped. And I don't know that we're ever going to go back to where we were pre-COVID, but there's going to be a lot more technology involved. So for those that kind of traditionally are averse to the idea of working in sales, it's like there's a lot more technology and data and stuff like that used in it every day. And it's pretty cool. I mean, so for people that have that marketing mind, think of sales because again, the technology, the data, everything that's involved with selling tickets, it's just not beating the streets and picking up the phone anymore. The good news is it is coming back. The Kings, we went on sale 2 days ago. We had hundreds of form stacks for the first time in a few years. We sold a ton yesterday. We had to use overtime for the first time in 12 months. It was spectacular. So it is coming back. I also run a program called Accelerated Sports Career Academy. We placed 3 people in the last 2 weeks in sales. So it's slowly coming back. But it's a great part of the industry. Again, there's so much new stuff that we're doing in it that we've never done before. So,
James, how can they connect with you on the Academy?
ASCacademy.com or reach out to us on LinkedIn. Our hashtag is GoASCacademy. Yeah.
ASC Academy. If you want to put it in the chat too, feel free if you want to drop it in there. And also, I want to
add one quick thing in there too, just to James' point. People think like marketing sounds sexy, sales sounds different. The line between those two things is extremely blurry, right? Sales and marketing overlap. They are essentially the same in a lot of different ways. There's much more creativity that's brought to sales than people envision. So, and technology and all of that. So don't get in your head that sales is bad, marketing is cool, because those lines are really blurry.
Yeah, that's great. So I want to open it up. I'm going to have Celeste jump in here too. But after that, I want you guys to feel free to jump in, students, just our audience. I don't want to make it so we get to the very end in a couple of minutes for questions. I want this to be interactive. That's like how I run my class too. Just feel very much like this is a conversation, not a lecture. So Celeste, you know your thoughts. You've helped Fox on both sides of the camera in helping prepare aspiring broadcasters and people working in the business. But you've worked behind the camera as well on the production side. So I'm just curious what your point of view is right now on what things that you're seeing in sports media and sports broadcasting.
Right. I agree with Brian and James. Tech is moving really, really fast. Nesson just redid their Studio A in a month. We built that sucker. We did it all, stripped it, built it in again in a month. It was insane, but we did it. We pulled it off, and it's really futuristic and, high tech now. And then, like Brian said, it's about the creative piece. Those of you that, COVID has been tough, right? Like for the last year, like you've either been preparing and working on your authentic voice and how you're going to interview, and all that stuff is going to pay off for you as we go. Like Nesson, for example, we're hiring seasonal workers right now. Those of you I see here, hi everybody, we're with the externship at Nesson, like you're making those contacts, you're networking for those jobs that are coming open. They're coming, right? We're seeing them. I think Nesson right now, go to their careers page, has probably about 8 or 9 job openings right now. But I do see a lot moving in tech and operations. So my job right here, right now is I'm in charge of the cameras as far as going out to Fenway or the Bruins. And we're looking at redoing like all of our pieces with tech and all of the studios that are involved.
So since it seems like the people you meet who want to enter the broadcasting field, they start college and they want to be whether it's a sideline reporter or just out there telling stories. You ended up you headed towards another area, the production side. It's been wonderful for you and for the people that benefited by your expertise through the years. But how did you make that decision and sort of on your career path? And what would you say to people that don't really have much exposure yet to the production side of sports broadcasting? Because I think it's important that they know that about that side.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the great thing about being behind the camera and production work is, if you're, in my opinion, if you're really good at it, you're a leader. You know how to read a room. It's not about you, right? It is about the talent. So there's so many times when I see producers, they jump in front of the talent, they're like, hi, I'm your producer today. And it's like, sorry, it's not about you. It's not about me as a producer. It's about that talent making that connection. So when that conversation is had and those cameras go on, there's that information flowing and there's that connection that the viewers feel, right? So I think just being a good producer, you know what it's like to be in front of the camera, right? You know what it's like to edit, because editing makes you so much better as a producer. Like you think about different, shots, you think about different looks, how you want things to happen. So a good producer can wear all hats, kind of know a little bit about everything, but really create that space for people to shine. And I think that's what really enables someone to be really, really good at production.
Yeah. Brian, what would you say the most important character traits that, that you think most employers in sports are looking for, the things that jump out to you about a candidate? We can get specific about things in a resume or interview strategies or whatever, a little bit further down the road, but like the things that you would say to anybody putting together their profile to be the best candidate possible for jobs.
For sure. And Celeste's getting me geeked up because I was a producer for 10 or 12 years, and being in the booth, like I'm like living back and going through the thoughts of all the, I'm getting geeked up, but thank you, Celeste. Memory lane. Okay. So there's a lot of things, right? And I think this is where a lot of missed opportunities come in, and I won't get too deep into some other strategies, but I will tell you that, so often there are things you're told as far as soft skills, leadership, teamwork, all these great things. And then somebody tells me I am a leader, or I am a person who understands teamwork, or I'm great with time management. It's like your opportunity is to tell a story about those things, use those traits in a story. That's where your cover letter comes into play a lot of ways, don't just tell me that you're a leader. Give me an example. Give me a story, right? So many people take their cover letter and just like repeat their resume in paragraph form. And it's the most boring thing you could ever read. It's like, thank you, I can understand your resume. Putting it in paragraph form, I didn't really need that. So take that opportunity to explain some of those skills that you have that make you different. Give me your character. Tell me a time that you've experienced something. You will have an interview process where people will say to you, these behavioral interview questions, tell me about a time you did X, Y, and Z, right? Those questions are gonna come up 100 times. Well, take that idea, take that a concept and apply it to a cover letter so that you can make that impression up front. And some of those traits that I look for in hiring, and I know most of the people I interview look for in hiring, for me in the sports industry, and I swear to you, this was not some branding exercise where I wanted them all to start with C, they all just happened to. But I like people who are competitive, right? And I don't mean internally. I don't mean you want to compete with your coworkers, you want to defeat everybody else and make other people look bad. I mean, you want to beat the competition, right? And if you don't know what I mean by that, Kara Walker, no, I get her last name wrong. Damn, I'm losing it. Duke University women's basketball coach, Kara Lawson. Thank you. She has a video. Check it out. Go search on YouTube. You'll find it away. She explains the difference between hard work and competitiveness, and I love it. I've shared it 10,000 times probably. Okay, I would tell you all to watch it. All right. So competitive, coachable, right? You have to be able to learn and be open to learning, and you have to be curious. You have to want to keep pushing to do more, learn more, try things, be experimental, change things in your career, be willing to take on challenges. Like if you can do those things, you're going to stand out in the right ways, but you have to be able to explain them in a way that somebody like me or Celeste or James can read on a resume and say, this person came to life in their cover letter, and I want to know more. So let's schedule a phone interview. Let's schedule a face-to-face. Let's get on Zoom. Make me want to learn more about you.
What are the 3 C's again? Brian, go back over.
Let's see if I can remember. No, I'm kidding.
Competitive,
competitive, curious, and coachable. You can steal that. I haven't trademarked it.
That's great. Great. I've got my 4 P's. My students know about. It's
better. You have 4.
Passion, preparation, performance, and persistence. And I say them in that order because I think passion fuels the preparation, which I call my MVP. If you're prepared, I think everything falls in place. Doesn't mean you're going to win every time, but at least you go in prepared, much like you would before an exam in school. Performance, it's bottom line. You got to do the job. Obviously, the best people are, the ones that get the job done. And then persistence ties it all together in my mind.
Yeah. Yours might be better. I might steal yours.
No, you absolutely. It's what's mine is yours. It's all good. That's what we do in this business. You know, we share
and everything, so don't worry.
But I really like what you said, Brian, about not being too broad in general, because I always say that I talk about separators, but you know, being passionate isn't a separator.
Right.
Working hard, having a great interest in sports. Well, we get that, you know, and you don't need to know the most about sports. In fact, sometimes that's a red flag because you become too much of a fan and nobody wants to hire fans.
I'll give you a super quick example too.
Please.
And this is from back at the time when Celeste and I used to work together. I used to have a version of my cover letter where I told a story about how I was the lead editor for our NFL preview show. And it was our most important show, and it aired on Sunday mornings. And the entire system, it took me 2 days to edit all the components for the show. And this was before I was a producer. And it was 8 o'clock at night on Saturday. And the whole system crashed. Everything went to kaput. And Sandy Malcolm, my boss, came up to me and said, well, you know what to do. And that meant the show still airs tomorrow. You got to get it done. And I stayed all night and got it done. So I tell a story like that so that I tell that I have work ethic, so that I tell that I understand the game and how it all works. And I get these soft skills across through a story. And so rather than just saying the words, you weave it into part of your experience.
Terrific. And the idea of being specific and giving an example. See, the other thing I like to tell students or anybody trying to, you know, break into sports is, you know, the person that you're interviewing with, they have to go most cases and tell the person that they report to why they've made this choice or why they're recommending this person. Give them something to work with. If they can take the story you told and tell it to someone, that means a lot more than just saying, you know, they really seem to have a strong work ethic.
Right.
You know, they're good, seem like solid, good character. Give me something else. Give me an example of what you've done. And I think that's, you know, really a good thing to keep in mind. I always say about cover letters, make that a snapshot of your resume. Give it a quick example of something that it's in the resume that you want them to notice. So just be thinking about snapshots that illustrate sort of these things that you feel like you do really well, that you stand for. There was a question in the chat that was really good that I wanted to share that Layla mentioned. They always tell us to be confident but not overconfident in an interview. How do you differentiate that? Celeste, do you have any thoughts about that?
Sorry, I was looking at the chat to answer a question. So what was the question?
Yeah, the question was about being confident in an interview, but not overconfident. So, you know, that may be tricky, but what are your thoughts about that?
So, you know, I think every hiring manager, especially myself, you know, I want, like you said, people to be confident but not cocky, right? Because you want to hire somebody that has room for growth. And if you have all the answers and you know it all, sorry, but you're not for me, right? So I think like when you go into an interview, it's that piece of, you know, answering that question, tell me about yourself, is so important to me. Like, I want to know about you, right? And people debate this all the time. They're like, hey, should I go personal? Should I just go business? And for me, I'm going to say go personal, because if I'm interviewing with a company, I want them to personally know about me. And if it's all business, that's not the culture I want to be in anymore. I think we're moving ahead with that right now, right? So we had a externship session yesterday, and Stephen Flynn was talking about this, and he's like, you know, when you go into an interview, know who you're working for, who you're working with, and what the culture's like. And when you go into that interview, you should be holding your power and your energy, because you're talking about yourself, right? You know your stories, but you should also be asking a lot of questions, right? Do you want to work for me? You don't know if I'm a micromanager. You don't know if, you know, like I'm going to ask you a million questions about stress levels, because can you handle if a talent gets stressed out and starts yelling at you? You know what I mean? Like, hey, like this needs to be on, or this needs to happen. Are you going to freeze, or are you going to move, right? And that's kind of what I'm determining in the interview, kind of like what Brian said, through your stories. What are you about? What are you demonstrating to me? Like, I always tell these two real quick things. I hired a guy once who was telling me he had no media experience, but he ran a forklift in a warehouse through all these shelves and ruined like a whole bunch of merchandise. But how he told his story about what he did afterwards, I was just like, yep, I want him on my team. And every hiring manager wants that. They want you. They want what you bring to the table. And I think, as you know, it's kind of scary to go into those interviews because you're like, oh my gosh, I want to give them the right answer. I want people to like me. But you also want to be you, because if you take a job and you really can't feel like yourself, it's going to just kind of snowball into your confidence level. So again, it's kind of asking those questions and going and connecting and saying thank you and saying please. These are all things that help.
Yeah. James, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I was just going to add, you kind of have to know yourself, because some people, they don't have that big ego. So I would say if you don't have the biggest ego, come in as confident as possible, because you've got to meet the level of the other applicants that are going to be there. If you know you're the biggest head in the room every time you walk in everywhere, then obviously you need to scale it back. So you've got to know yourself. I totally agree. We don't want, someone who's not coachable, but we do want positivity. We do want energy. We do want someone who knows that they're going to get the job done. So I talk to a lot of people who are like, I'm afraid to push too hard. I'm like, you're never going to push too hard. So go as hard as you need to go. So Same thing with confidence is, if you know you're not always the most confident person, then be as confident as possible, like be overconfident.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, Layla, too. Same thing. You can't, it's so easy to, just be confident, go in and act like you've been there before. And it's hard to just to all of a sudden just do that. So I just think if you're genuine, if you're authentic, what you stand for, examples of work you've done, just what Celeste, that example of the forklift, you'd say, how's that going to be necessarily relevant to the job? But it's relevant to who you are as a person. So the more snapshots you can give someone of who you are, and just carrying yourself with at least some amount of confidence, that if you're at the interview stage, that means there's a strong interest in you, and you have a strong interest there. So, don't be intimidated. Look at these interviews as opportunities. That's always a big thing. Not to make it sound, cliched or whatever, but I really do think of them as opportunities.
Well, and the interviewer, this is where the frame of mind gets whacked out sometimes. The interviewer is not your enemy, right? They want you to be the answer to their problems. They want you. Hiring is tough. It is, you are vulnerable. You're so worried about trying to elevate a client, elevate a potential candidate who your boss is going to hate. Like, there's all these doubts you have. They want you. If I'm interviewing you, I want you to be the perfect person. I want you to win. I want you to answer every perfect question perfectly. I am not your enemy. Like, I want you to be great. So go in with that frame of mind of saying, like, the world is here for me to take. So go in with a positive attitude, knowing that you can and should succeed in that room.
Yeah, and Celeste, I would say you're all about the positive attitude, right? And how somebody can make a difference with your company.
Absolutely. We were just talking about this yesterday on a Zoom call where the last seasonal we just hired, she was in the externship program. And she doesn't have as much knowledge as everybody else does as far as running a jib camera or being a stage tech. But she is like kind of what Brian is saying. She's so curious. She wants to learn. She's asking so many questions. And we will take that any day over someone who's like, yeah, I know how to do that, but maybe I'm not going to give 100%. Like, it's the people that every day you got to be present at work if you want to work in the industry, is my opinion, especially in broadcasting and television. Like, you have to be here. You can't be over there or doing a million different things. Yeah. You have to be present, because every little detail matters. And, those of us that work in television or have worked in television, it's like you never, watch television the same again, because you're
yeah,
could have done that with the lighting.
Yeah, tototally. That edit's weird, and yeah. My wife hates watching TV with me.
It's like with me with editing. I always say, like, I'm that annoying person that edits a menu. It's iced tea with a D, not iced tea. But that's one thing. Always an editor. The other thing I wanted to add to, Casey Wasserman pointed this out a few years ago when he came to class. I always give him credit for this. He said, you want to know how to impress me, like in an interview? We were talking about this very thing, and he said, don't just tell me why this is a great job for you. Hey, I'm the biggest fan. We just mentioned that. Don't be a fan first, but I really I know so much about, I've dreamed that this is my dream job. Another potential red flag. If it's your first job out of college, shouldn't be your dream job. He said, why don't you focus on telling me why you would be a good hire for me? Like, what am I getting out of it? I know you're getting out of it. You want to work in sports and this is the job you want. But what is it about, what are you bringing to the table for me? How can you make my company more successful? And it's a subtle difference in some ways, but it's really true. Like, put yourself in the position of the person doing the hiring. What are you going to add to their team versus, you hire me and this will be a dream come true. Turn it around and look at it from their point of view. Guys, just jump in. Questions. Use the raised hand function, and we can jump in and get some.
I think they're all going to be for Celeste. There's so much love for her on the chat. I mean, there's
absolutely.
I mean,
Yes.
seriously,
Kennedy, go ahead. Welcome.
James and I just sit back.
Unfortunately, Brian, you're right. I do have a question for Celeste.
I knew it.
We all love Celeste. Go ahead.
Celeste, I see that there's a lot of kind of one way to kind of view sports journalism in a very serious news-like fashion. And I'm wondering if there's a market for more, not lighthearted, but it's still journalism, but it doesn't take itself as serious as kind of like, is there room for more entertainment within the journalism world within sports?
Absolutely. Like NESN has a programming called Dining Playbook, and that is more like a lifestyle show. And it was created initially based on athletes and where they were eating and where they were, going in New England, what kind of resorts they were going to or hotels they were going to. And it kind of morphs away from the athlete, but it's still one of the biggest money makers at NESN as far as, just again, going out to these local restaurants, which was awesome because it really gave these restaurants like a platform, right? And helped humanity. And then there's all sorts of lifestyle shows as far as, I think, what's the one called? There's another one with, I believe her name's Jamie Parker, and she basically goes with athletes after they've retired and goes around with them. So there's ways to, yes, have a lot of fun and entertainment. I think digital is always moving that way, right? Because it's going to be more conversational all the time than broadcasting. And then I'll say one last thing, one of the things that I'm seeing as a trend too, for those of you that want to be on camera and do that, is a lot of the networks are taking the digital employees that want to be on camera, and they're like using them as the training ground, right, to move on the broadcast themselves. So they're like letting them have the experience and getting their feet wet and really getting those reps in, and then moving them more into the prime time kind of shows at NESN.
Mm-hmm.
Kennedy, I'd add real quick too, access is huge. So anything behind the scenes, anything where you're seeing athletes 100%. In a way you wouldn't normally see them, like to Celeste's point, like out eating, doing whatever, but like all those access points that can bring unique content, that's entertainment, right? That's seeing them in a different light. And it's taking, what started out as Hard Knocks to an extreme and making that into a bigger platform. But that's also what resonates on social. It's like, those are the elements you can't get. If the media is not allowed, teams should be exploring that and sending that out, like when Tuesday walkthroughs, media is not there, right? So the fact that the team can explore that and share that content, that's what people are dying for, is that access, those access points that you can't get anywhere else. So those sort of moments sell.
So true. I'm in LA, Spectrum, which does Lakers, Dodgers. I mean, a big, really popular feature with Spectrum's coverage is backstage Lakers, backstage Dodgers. In fact, one of my former students works there, and that's what he does. What he works on are the backstage shows. So bringing you behind the scenes. I mean, we're at that time with the platforms available and athletes and their voices developing and speaking directly to, their audience, their fans. Is people want to go behind the scenes, because that's the one place we really haven't been yet. Is really, sort of following an athlete in the journey, the day-to-day journey. So I think there's absolutely
and if you pitched that 10 years ago, teams would have said, hell no, right? Now they're open to it. I'm serious, because I pitched that to the Mariners 15 years ago, doing behind the scenes stuff and getting them when it's like off the field, make them human, get behind and they looked at me like I was insane. Then I went to the Seahawks and they said, you're insane. Right now you go to a team and say that and they're like, that sounds awesome. What can you do for us? Because they have to build up the personalities of their athletes. That sells.
It's so important. Yeah. Kennedy, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I was just about to ask, so is that what teams are focusing on now more, is the more social media, the more inside access? Is that becoming more important than the game itself?
I don't know, Celeste, how you, I feel like that's becoming a hugely important component. I don't know about more important than the game itself, but, you know, you might be able to speak to that as far as, you know, what your priorities, what you guys are doing to programming for Nesson.
Yeah, I definitely, I agree with you, Jeff. You know, I don't think it's more important than the game. I think, you know, everybody, you know, is either cheering for their team or they're cheering for an athlete because of their story, right? So I think they're equally important now. And I would say too that, you know, like, you know, we're doing, like, it's always in their own stories when you hear from the athlete, because a lot of people love that kind of programming, right? Where the athlete's actually telling their story instead of having a broadcaster ask the questions for them to tell their story. It's just literally the athlete saying it in their own words. So we see an uptick in that kind of programming all the time.
Great.
Yeah, and as James well knows. Oh, go ahead, James. Sorry.
Yep.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we talk about a lot is, you know, creating more ways for people to digest the game. So not everyone's going to tune in traditionally anymore. Things, I mean, they don't at all. So trying to figure out more ways to get the game to people, you know, digest it more to micro level, like, and again, live in your pockets, you know, like how can you digest it in specific types of communities and things like that. So there's a lot being done there. It won't be the traditional broadcast the way we've known it.
And in a game, you can sell lots of sponsorship moments. You can sell a lot of marketing activations. You can sell a lot of moments in between and have a lot of sponsored elements. In a behind the scenes piece, you may have a naming sponsor. You may have Dunkin' Donuts sponsors this moment. So the revenue is much higher, has much higher potential on the game side. The game side's never going to be less important because it pencils, right? In a big way. That's what brings everything else into the fold.
Mm-hmm. And now's the time to be creative, frankly. If you have ideas about areas that maybe aren't covered as much as you think, rather than wait for somebody to, you know, to develop programming in that area, like be someone that, you know, has a plan, creates it. One of my students, Mayan Chavez, a man with $1 million smile. Welcome, Mayan.
I appreciate it, Jeff. One of our speakers in one class said that they're a Jeff groupie, and I gotta agree with that. And shout out Seattle. I appreciate you saying, Brian. I'm from Seattle, so
there's my Sean Alexander jersey.
I love it. I love it. It's easy to talk about the Seahawks. Mariners, not so much.
When I was there, they were good. They won 115 games my first year there, so it was pretty fun.
You got lucky. But anyway, my question is, you were talking a lot about soft skills, you know, a lot of things, being able to get specific with your soft skills story. However, I hear from a lot of people as well, like try to develop your hard skills as well. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what does that mean in sports? Like, I've had, you know, some of my experience in with corporate, you know, sponsorships, and I even see a fellow internship mate that was with me, but I'm just like, what certifications, what do I do that's actually gonna, you know, help me out?
Right, I'm ready to go. I'm churned up. Now you got me. Okay.
Fired up.
So here's the deal. Hard skills get you noticed. Soft skills close the deal, right? So I'll give you for example. If I am hiring for a role, my HR team is going to say to me, all right, write up a job description, give me 10 skills you need from this role, give me 10 expectations of what you want this person to be able to do, blah, blah, blah. They go out to the marketplace and they come back with 20 or 40 resumes that fit the match. So if you don't have the hard skills, I never even see you. I don't even know you exist. I don't know that you're a good leader. I don't know that you have teamwork skills. Like, I don't know any of that, right? So you have to have those hard skills first, those things that can contribute to the end goal of an organization, the things that say, I can do this job that you need me to. So my advice to you, find 10 or 15 jobs that interest you. They're not jobs that you're going to apply to. You're just doing research right now. Go look at 10 or 15 jobs that sound good to you. Write down every single skill that they're saying in there that they need for this role. It might say we want somebody that has CRM experience. It might say we have somebody that has Adobe Premiere Pro experience, or it might have somebody that has camera work, whatever it is, right? I need somebody that's great at Python. I don't care. Write down all these skills that fit for the jobs that you are interested in. Then in the next column over, write down where your comfort level is with that skill. If you are looking at it and you're like, whoa, I just looked at 10 jobs that interest me, that say that I need to have Photoshop skills, and I've never even turned it on before, guess what? Now your game plan is to learn Photoshop. So you need to go into this with an attitude of, What is my goal? Where do I want to end up? And then what is the reason that they're going to hire me? Do I have the skills that they are looking for that match their needs? I tell this story all the time. I got hired at CNN Sports Illustrated out of college. When most people in the broadcast media start out in Pocatello, Idaho, I started at CNN Sports Illustrated because I had a specific skill that they needed. They were looking for sports people that knew nonlinear editing. Now, this was 1996, so I'm dating myself. Nonlinear editing is not really a big deal now, but it was then. And I had that skill, so I got noticed. And then it was up to me to do the rest. I had to nail the interview. I had to follow through on all those processes. I had to try to get to, there's all these other things that go into it. But if you don't identify the skills that are needed for what you want to do, then you are going into this without a target. So figure out what those things, job descriptions are an open book test. They're telling you what they want. So make sure you have those skills and put the work in right now. When I first started doing our podcast, I had never done a podcast before. I watched YouTube videos and figured it out. There's thousands of ways to gain experience. So it doesn't have to be I took a course. There's millions of ways to learn, but fill in those gaps for what they want and what you have. And then you're going to be a lot more marketable out there.
Great stuff.
I tried to say that as fast as I could. That was the Boston in me that just came through. I was like 100 words a second.
I love it.
I appreciate that. That was super helpful.
Garrett Seville, welcome.
Hello. Yeah, I had just a quick question for Brian, actually.
Oh, Celeste.
Sorry. With everyone during COVID, like making podcasts and stuff, like how do we see the future of podcasts? Like I know, for example, there's like the All the Smoke with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, the Pat McAfee show, the Brandon Marshall, Chad Ochocinco, I Am Athlete. Like,
yeah, I can't compete with those.
Where can we see podcasts moving in the next direction? Because I know every athlete made a podcast basically during COVID. Like, which ones are going to stay around, and which content do you think will actually remain like relevant?
Look, if you have a built-in audience and you're an athlete, that's a different level. Like Bill Simmons launches a podcast. If he launches another one tomorrow, we'll have 1 million viewers each day. I mean, if whoever launches one, if Kareem decided to launch one tomorrow, yeah, Jeff, that was for you. If Kareem decided to launch one tomorrow, it would have 10 million, downloads. Don't even worry about that stuff. I don't look at it as like that's who I'm trying to compete with our podcast. I'm trying to identify a niche, understand the problems that people need fixing, and try to answer those questions. Keep it simple, right? Don't be the 10,000th Lakers podcast. You're never going to compete with ESPN. You're never going to compete with all the other voices out there. Find what you can bring to the table that is unique. And I don't care if that's covering high school sports or whatever it may be. Find a niche that you can really dig into. This happens all the time. Somebody says, "Oh, I want to launch a podcast. I'm going to cover the Raptors." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think there's some people doing that, right?" You're not going to stand out in that regard. Try to have a unique angle and niche that you solve. For me, it's people who want to work in the sports industry and providing career advice and interviewing people who work in the sports industry and having them tell their story. That's a niche we can fill, right? It ties into our business. It all makes sense.
It's such great observation and advice of what is your differentiator going to be, Garrett? So like what my podcast is about career journeys in sports by people that I think are newsmakers in sports and their journey, and I could do that because of a network that I've built up for years and years. I have some access. If I was starting out, not a great idea necessarily. Like you've got to build it up. Like what is it? What's your thing? What do you know that maybe somebody else doesn't know nearly as well? That other people. What are you bringing that's different? So you really be thinking about that, and everything you do getting ready for careers in sports is, how do you differentiate? What are your separators? We have time, I think, maybe for one more. If anybody has one more question, we're going. I'll just.
Siobhan had a good one in the chat.
Yeah, go ahead. You can share that, Brian. If you want to.
So Siobhan asked, how many of the hard skills do you need to have on a resume to get in the door? Do you need to have all of them to get past a large pool of applicants? I'm hoping Celeste will answer, but I'm going to say one thing really quick. I will tell you this. Women, this is proven data. This is a fact. Women think they need to have all 10, like if they list 10 skills, women think they need to have all 10 of the skills in order to bother applying. Men think if I have 2 of them, that's probably good enough, right? There's such this disconnect. Really what it is somewhere in the middle. it's more like 6 or 7, right? If you have more than half of what they're asking for, you're probably in a good position. But if you have 2 of the skills they're asking for, go work on yourself before you start applying.
Yeah, great stuff. James, I want to come back to you to finish it up. Just what, where was your break along the way, and how did it, you know, when you, to launch you into sports, to get where where you've been in, you know, heavy on the ticket sales side, premium seating, where was it that kind of, what was kind of launched you?
I mean, breaking in with the Clippers, but the Ontario reign, going the route of minor league hockey, being thrust into an expansion team, new building opening up, having to do everything myself. Again, learning on the job. So the best advice I can give you is, if you're going after the pros and it's not happening for you, please entertain the great opportunities in minor league and collegiate. Again, it doesn't have to be UCLA. It can be a Division III school where you will learn by being thrust in the fire. For me, I'm a huge proponent of minor leagues. I work at the Kings now, but I get to work with our minor league teams every day. And again, the experience you're going to gain there is incredible. So for me, it was launching the Ontario reign in 2008 and having to wear the mascot uniform, sell tickets, sell sponsorships, again, do everything under the sun. So gain that experience wherever you can find it.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because the minor leagues are so often overlooked in California. The California League Baseball, although we're losing some minor league baseball teams, but people just look, they forget about that. There's other places to go to get great experience beyond just, you know, the major leagues. You guys, this has been terrific. You just love your observations, your experience, your energy has been just off the charts. So Brian Clapp, James Collins, Celeste Gehring, thank you for getting us off to a great start. And thanks also for offering to be a help to the students. Really, really appreciate it. You guys rock.
Great seeing everybody.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank
today.
you.
So much fun. Thank you.
All right. Well,
Ron?
thank you, Jeff.